with, from your standpoint, kind of a state of the city of obviously new council members come in after the latest election. You get elected, the mayor taking over for Dave Polikas. I guess, where do you feel we're at right now here as we're just underway? And I know you guys have had a few meetings here, including one big meeting early in January. But where do you kind of feel we're at here in the city of Laramie starting 2017 from your perspective and being on the council here for a little bit?
Well, David, actually, I think that Laramie is weathering the storm of the state economic crisis in Wyoming a lot better than a lot of the other cities, to be frank. We do have a couple of new council members, and they're full of energy and new ideas, and we got a little bit of that at our first big meeting. We're going to be meeting later this weekend on Saturday for our second half of our goal setting session to really get together and talk about what our goals are upcoming in the next year. So that'll be a pretty big meeting.
All right. Obviously, you know, one of the things has been the state impact, and you think we're weathering the storm pretty well. What has that done to our city's budget, our city, and you know, I know you can't speak to the county, but I know that there's less money coming from the state down to cities, towns, and counties across the state.
Well, there certainly is. Last year we took a really big hit to our budget. Laramie took almost a 50% cut in direct distribution money coming from the state. And we saw that last year with our budget cuts. My goal as a council member and now mayor is to hopefully do those budget cuts in a way that the citizens don't notice a severe drop in services. So we've lost a couple of things that people really liked, like curbside leaf pickup, Christmas tree pickup, unfortunately. But we did have to take 12 positions out of our inventory last year as part of those budget cuts. We were fortunate enough not to be able to have to lay anybody off. Those were all vacant positions, but essentially we're doing the same with less. Again, we're asking our city employees to do more every single day. And so this year going forward, Laramie sales tax is fairly stable, which is pretty normal. You'll see in some of the other counties where they've taken a 30 or 40% dip in their sales tax, so that's good. But we still don't have a lot of money running around. We're still one of the poorest counties in the state of Wyoming. So hopefully we'll be able to keep on this kind of broke, but steadily broke.
Not quite too far in the hole downturn, right?
Yes.
I guess. So,
yes.
So that has some people concerned in terms of how are we going to move forward? If we can't ever seem to get out of the steadily broke, how do we move forward in a positive manner, I guess?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that Laramie is unique in our community in that, and we hold a lot of brain power and community spirit here. So what we lack in funding, per se, we make up in a lot of different other ways. The funding is definitely challenging. It really hampers the city's ability to do street repairs and street rebuilds, and we're all familiar with the potholes in some of the streets that need desperate attention here. And you know, that is frustrating, having the infrastructure issues that we do. Certainly everybody's familiar with the cracked sidewalks and all of those fun things. But what we do get here is we get a lot of volunteerism, we get a lot of community action and awareness from a lot of our groups and partners out there, and frankly they do a lot of things that maybe a city in a better financial picture might do. For example, we had a bunch of groups come together and do Christmas tree pickup for us this year on a volunteer basis to try to fill that hole that the city wasn't able to do this year. So we continue to develop those things. We continue to ask our citizens, our student community, our professional community that live here, our longtime residents, to step up and actually be involved in their community, and we'll keep doing that. On the fiscal side of things, we're going to have to keep looking for ways to make that work, because eventually we're going to need dollars to put into streets. I
was going to ask you, and we'll talk more about street repair and upkeep and things like that specifically, because that was one of the topics I wanted to get into this morning. But one of the bigger ones has been, and you and I and everybody in the town knows it, has been snow removal here in the last month. We had the two big storms about a week apart in early January, dumped a lot of snow. We still see the remnants all over the place. I know that there are certain routes that have to get plowed. I think the biggest concern from some of the citizens is why the city can't find ways to plow some of the secondary routes a little more than other communities across the town. That's been one of the bigger questions we've gotten asked in our Ask the City feature.
Well, certainly. So it's definitely snowplow discussion season. Nobody wants to talk about mosquitoes right now.
We could do that, but no, I'm not feeling the mosquitoes. So we can talk about that maybe later this year.
A little later. So for snow plowing, again, unfortunately, it's a financial issue. We have to try to make sure our resources across the city go as far as they can. So we do have a priority list that's set by council. It includes the arterials, collectors. We work with YDOT to make sure Grand, Third, and Snowy Range are all plowed, all of those things. And then we get around to the schools. The schools are the big one. We need to make sure that the buses can get in and out and the kids can get dropped off and picked up. And pretty much that extends our capacity that we have here at the city. To be able to do more secondary route plowing, such like on the day of the storm, that would require more money, to be very blunt with you. Now, after the storm, you've seen our street crews have continued to go out and clear out areas. So they've been working downtown. They've been working on clearing block storm drainages, which is a huge thing right now because if you can't get rid of the water, you're not going to get rid of the problem. So we continue to do those things after the storm. I know that there are citizens that really have spoken out about wanting the city to look at how we're plowing, whether we're plowing to the center, whether we're plowing to the side, what streets, is downtown a high enough priority. All of those things have really come out. And I do think that that is because of the storms that we've gotten. I can think, in my memory, only another maybe 1 or 2 storms in the last few years that we've had that have generated this kind of issue. So it doesn't happen very often, at least not in the last 5-10 years. So I think that the city's going to take a look at those policies and bring them back and see if there's anything we can do to fine tune everything. But we have to ask the citizens to be patient with us. Help us out, go clear out your block storm drain, that kind of thing. If there are areas of town that are just impassable, give us a call in our streets department or send us a request tracker. You can log on to the City of Laramie website and just send us a request online.
One of the interesting parts that I heard from some varying folks in our community was, and there's actually a number of different, but I'm going to start with one where there was a concerned citizen who said she paid for a private contractor to come dig out her driveway. She owns her property. Sure. She's got and then the city came in and plowed all the work those guys did, and she couldn't get out of her driveway, got stuck again, and she was wondering what is the solution for a citizen like that, where you went and paid hard money, good money to some guys that came out and helped and plowed her out, and then all of a sudden it gets plowed back in. What are we supposed to do as a citizen if that type of an issue happens? This is just one example, folks.
Sure, certainly. Well, unfortunately, I've seen that when we plow down the streets, people's driveways get plowed in, unfortunately. I wish that we could be more attentive to everybody's driveways and everything, but again, we've got a large number of streets to plow, so we have to get those done. And our main number one priority is safety. We want to get the snow out of the road so we don't have a ton of accidents. Anything we can do to cut down on that is a huge plus for everybody involved. I certainly feel for that resident that spent all that money and plowed out her driveway. I always encourage everybody, if they have an issue like that, to call our streets department. Our City of Laramie staff is phenomenal at trying to work around issues. As a standing policy, the city can't, make sure we don't put snow in everybody's driveway. I wish that was possible, but it's not, unfortunately, with the volume that we do. But certainly call into the streets department. Another
one that I've noticed just as a citizen, and I'm not complaining because you got to deal with it. It's Laramie. I'm sorry, it's winter. It happens. But where you're plowing a main thoroughfare and then it kind of stacks up the snow right there at the intersection, and to me it becomes kind of an accident issue, basically, kind of an accident alert, where you're coming down the side street and then you end up almost, when it melts, it ends up being a skating rink until you get to the dry pavement, and then by that time maybe you're out into the street a little bit. Is there something where you guys will look at maybe trying to plow into some of the side streets, just kind of give not completely plow a secondary route, but maybe kind of give like a swath into a side street so that you're not just stacking up the snow right there at an intersection, basically? Sure, I think that's certainly something that we can look at our holistic policy overview that we need to do. Intersections are tricky. Of course, you got to get the snow out of there, and you don't want to create a huge road hazard for people to go busting through snowdrifts to get into an intersection. And the city does use ice slicer when it's necessary to try to get that ice out of there. But again, I think that is something that the city's going to take a look at, just based on the number of comments that we've gotten through email and phone calls to the city. Oh, I bet. I can only imagine. Again, we're visiting with Mayor Andi Summerville, kind of up to join me here at Laramie Live on KOWB on a Monday. With snow removal, I think some of the bigger questions have come where some people feel that smaller communities across the state have done a better job. Are there ways to reallocate different resources? And I'm just spitballing here. Maybe we don't water every day the parks in the summer, and you take some of that money and shift it over here. This is all obviously a delicate process with the whole budget situation.
Well, it certainly is, and I wish it was that simple. I tell you, going into being on the council, I thought it was, and it certainly isn't. There's places where, like water, where we have to keep that money in our water fund. We can't move it around for snow plowing. Same with trash. That money is certainly siloed, so we can't move that around. But as far as priorities, you're absolutely right. If the citizens want us to take a look at making snow plow more of a priority and put more financial resources to that, then we need to hear that, especially coming up into budget season. But that does come at a cost. The City of Laramie doesn't have a large reserve account. We don't have money that's unallocated at the end of the year. We're using every dime for our citizens. So if they want us to spend less money on Parks and Rec and put it to snow plowing, then we need to hear that. If they want us to do less street repair and more money in plowing, then we need to hear that. That's a delicate and a hard choice for a council to make. I think we have a lot of priorities around the city, and we try to get each one of them the best that we can. But again, literally we have the lowest sales tax collection per capita in the state, and that's a hard budget to work.
Absolutely. Street repair and upkeep obviously is a difficult one because of the budget, and you've explained that. But I guess what do you feel are the priorities when it comes to street repair, especially when it's so difficult sometimes to do in the heart of winter? I think of there was the water main breaks on Sheridan, and then one at 26th and Grand, basically right there near Sonic. And it seems like they don't really get patched over. And obviously I understand that to a degree, because you need to wait for the pavement to warm up and dry out and things like that in summertime and maybe a new budget season. But are there other ways that we can look about, maybe temporary fixes? That I've seen some of these concrete patches that they do in a fast, where's kind of the balance in terms of the money that they spend in that regard?
Well, that's a great question. It is always a balance of not wanting to spend money in the wintertime, only have to redo it in the spring, necessarily, with our budget situation. Okay. So we do the best we can on those patches. Some of that also has to do with, depending on the repair, we have to let the ground or the pavement settle before we can patch over it. Otherwise, we're really just wasting money, because the water line might adjust and sink, and then we have to go back in and put that in. And we have been doing a lot of repairs. That 40-degree below zero weather that we had did a number on some of our older water lines. I think we had some great pictures in the boomerang of water pipes spouting ice out of them. So that's, again, a question of trying to use the dollars in the best way possible, and it is a delicate balance. There are areas that definitely need some attention. We have major street repairs that definitely need some attention, as well as trying to juggle the patching and all of those things. But we also have a very difficult climate, especially when we have the type of winter we have this year, where those patches won't necessarily stay. Well,
and somebody brought up the point of, forgive me, I cannot remember off the top of my head, of what ends up happening with some of the street repairs is it just seems like it goes so long into the summer before they get repaired. Is that just a fiscal budget year issue?
No, it's not. It's actually, most of the time, it's a contractor scheduling issue.
Okay.
So we have a pretty high demand for contractors that do this type of work in southeast Wyoming. A lot of them have a lot of work in northern Colorado. At least they have in the last 3 or 4 years. So these type of projects aren't necessarily a high priority for them. So most of the time, we're at the mercy of their schedule. So we can put an end date on a contract for them that meets that budgetary need, but we kind of have to wait on their schedule.
So that explains it. Another one I got with snow removal is the policy of not, as a business owner downtown, not being able to shovel into the street where maybe the city can help clean that up a little bit more. Business owner got, we're supposed to shovel, up around trees and poles and things like that, and then all of a sudden it melts, and then it becomes a skating rink, and then you got worries of, is somebody going to sue me if they slip and fall in front of my business? And so what can we do to remedy that issue, maybe downtown and for some of the local business owners, or maybe just anywhere across the town?
Well, I think that's a great point, especially downtown, because that's our central business district. We want people to be able to walk on the sidewalks without falling down. I'm sure the business owners are concerned about liability, but in general, as the mayor, I'm just concerned about that overall accessibility of downtown. I want people, even in January, to be able to pull up and go shop. I know that shoveling the street has been an issue. You get snow up on the gutters, and it can clog the storm drains. Becomes difficult to remove. People can't park in it. Things along those lines. So that policy, again, was something that was discussed and set by the community many, many, many years ago. So if we need to put that on the list to look at, about, especially in our business districts, how that works, then we can certainly do that too.
Best way for, whether it's an individual or a business owner or whatever, to provide feedback to you guys?
Well, we have a variety of electronic options. You can put information in our citizen request tracker online. You can email us. All of our individual council addresses, as well as our city staff, are all available online. Most of us have phone numbers published. Personally, I can tell everybody that I Facebook, I tweet, I Instagram. I'm trying to Snapchat, although I'm just on that outer edge of the millennial generation, so I'm still learning. I'm still dealing with that one.